Now that both International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice are set to give their rulings on Israel, the rogue regime of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu has resorted to doing what it's best at doing. That is, using the sellout members of the US Congress to blackmail South Africa to drop its case at the ICJ and use threats of sanctions against the ICC judges to ensure that no arrest warrant is issued against Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Gallant is the same sick man who had first ordered cutting off water, fuel, electricity and energy supply to Gaza in the immediate aftermath of 7th of October 2023.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
Now, according to reports, Israel is panicking over the prospect of an ICJ ruling stating that the Netanyahu's rogue regime has been carrying out genocide in Gaza since 7th of October 2023. While there is absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that Israel's action in Gaza had long crossed the threshold of genocide, an indictment from the world's top court would be embarrassing for Israel and its biggest backers, the US and the UK.
After 5 months of monitoring and analyzing Israel's onslaught on Gaza, my report finds that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating that Israel is committing the crime of genocide against the Palestinians as a group in Gaza has been met. Specifically, Israel has committed 3 acts of genocide with a requisite intent: killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, and deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
Both the UK and the US have exposed themselves spectacularly by participating in the Israeli genocide, even though both these countries have continued to claim that they respected international laws. With a likely adverse ruling from the ICJ, it will be difficult even for the shameless regimes of Joe Biden in the US and Keir Starmer in the UK to give any spin in favor of Israel. There are reports that Israelis have instructed its sellout members of the US Congress to exert pressure on the new South African Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola, who arrived in the US last week on a week-long visit. Lamola replaced Naledi Pandor as the country's new foreign minister after this summer's parliamentary elections. Israel has reportedly told Congress members who are on its payroll to threaten the South African foreign minister with trade sanctions to force him to withdraw the genocide case from the ICJ. This move comes just hours after Chile became another country to join the South African case of genocide against Israel at the ICJ. This was announced by the ICJ in its tweet on Friday. The tweet read, "Yesterday, Chile, invoking Article 63 of the Statute of the Court, filed in the Registry of the Court a declaration of intervention in the case concerning the application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip. South Africa versus Israel." Earlier, Spain, Egypt, Indonesia, and Slovenia was some of those notable countries who had extended their support to South Africa at the ICJ. Israel and its war criminal backers are also in a fix with the possibility of ICC issuing an arrest warrant against Netanyahu and his defense minister. The question was posed to Israel's unofficial ambassador in the US, war criminal Anthony Blinken. This is what he has said.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Foreign Secretary. Secretary Blinken, could I ask you about a couple of aspects of the Middle East? The Israel Defense Forces just a moment ago released an investigation, or released some preliminary findings into the death of an American citizen, Miss Eisenor Enyegi. Could you say, they said that she was killed most likely by Israeli fire, but unintentionally. Are you confident with that assessment? Does the United States want to see anything further? Are you confident with the assessment that this was unintentional? And what more do you want Israel to do? Could there be repercussions? For both of you, could I ask you about the International Criminal Court? It seems that in the coming days there could be a formal decision on whether to seek an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu, among others. Mr. Foreign Secretary, the Labour government, of course, has taken a slightly different stance from your predecessors, from the Conservatives on this. Could you say what your position is, whether you support going ahead, and is there unity between the two allies on this? Thank you.
Sean, thank you very much. With regard to the tragic killing of Aysenur, I think what we saw of this investigation is it seems to show what eyewitnesses have said and made clear, that her killing was both unprovoked and unjustified. No one should be shot and killed for attending a protest. No one should have to put their life at risk just for freely expressing their views. In our judgment, Israeli security forces need to make some fundamental changes in the way that they operate in the West Bank, including changes to their rules of engagement. We've long seen reports of the security forces looking the other way when extremist settlers use violence against Palestinians. We've seen reports of excessive force by Israeli security forces against Palestinians. And now we have the second American citizen killed at the hands of Israeli security forces. It's not acceptable. It has to change. And we'll be making that clear to the senior-most members of the Israeli government. Now, we're looking carefully at the results of this investigation, but even on an initial read, and even accepting it at face value, it's clear that there are serious issues that need to be dealt with, and we will insist that they be dealt with.
I think the important thing to stress in great democracies such as ours is our belief in the separation of powers. There is an important forum for lawyers and the judiciary and our courts, and then there is also an important forum for politicians and those who represent the people. We've always been clear in the UK in our belief in the international rule of law, the rules-based order, and in IHL issues which are fundamentally important. And we took a decision last week in relation to arms exports that were quasi-legal on the basis of our law as they stand. We believe in international law, we believe in the Statute of Rome, but these must be decisions for the international courts to determine. I don't want to comment on the assessment that they will reach. I qualified as a lawyer in part because of the great Harvard Law School, but I'm going to leave it to the lawyers to determine these very complex matters.
However, Blinken's veto woman at the United Nations Security Council, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, was more forthright in her response when she said this.
I wanted to ask about the International Court of Justice decision ruling that Israel's occupation is illegal and must end, and ordering member states, including the United States, to end support for Israel that assists their settlements, as well as the impending arrest warrant against Netanyahu and the Israeli foreign minister. Are you going to abide by the International Court of Justice orders? Are you going to arrest Netanyahu and the foreign minister if he turns up in the United States? And, you know, what is your feeling on these international court rulings?
Let me start with the last part of that. We have a problem with the court's ruling, and we've been clear that we have a problem with the court's ruling. And I think you know the answer to the question about whether we will arrest President Netanyahu. He was here in the United States a few weeks ago, and he was not arrested. The warrant was out before that. Okay, well, let me be clear. We will not arrest him. And because we have a question about the jurisdiction of the ICC on Israel, and we've made that very, very clear.
There's no denying the truth that the US has continued to sponsor Netanyahu's war crimes by helping him to murder tens of thousands of innocent Palestinian men, women, children, and babies. Aside from supplying lethal weapons to destroy Gaza and its civilian population, the US has also backed the Israeli terrorists in their savagery, such as raping of Palestinian men and women. This is just America's pro-Zionist political class truly representing American values. I'm sorry, but if these monsters and savages are being allowed to carry out the war crimes at this level with impunity, without any pushback from American population, then I'm sorry, American population has to bear the responsibility. And Ilhan Omar, the US Congresswoman, thinks that the new Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris offers empathy and compassion to Palestinians.
On a ceasefire hostage deal, she said that she would work around the clock, but she didn't offer any specifics on what that would look like. Was that enough of a plan in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is I believe there is a great appreciation in the empathy and compassion that she offers. But I do believe that voters, both in my district and in Minnesota and across the country that care, want to actually see either an implementation of a ceasefire or an actual concrete answer to how we get a ceasefire and why we have not been able to utilize the leverage that we have in order for that ceasefire to be implemented.
And of course, I assume by that, in part, you mean sending arms and weapons to Israel, which is something, we keep
there are tangible actions that could be taken, right? We are supplying the weapons that are causing the catastrophe. And so, to say you're working around the clock and not, take any actionable steps that the voters and the American people can see makes that rhetoric really hard to swallow.
I mean, I will not judge Ilhan purely because she's long championed the Palestinian cause and been a vocal critic of Israel and its Zionist ideologies. In fact, she has had to pay heavy price for being a known critic of Israel. But how can she be so naive to not understand the true colors of Harris? Did she forget that only a few days ago she was competing with Donald Trump in proving her loyalty to Israel?
Mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis.
Kamala Harris was indeed empathetic and compassionate to Palestinians. As Ilhan Omar puts it, she could have played a key role. I mean, Kamala Harris could have played a key role in stopping the slaughtering of 41,000 Palestinian men, women, children, and babies long ago. Many people call her lesser evil. To me, an evil is an evil. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support to this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you should consider becoming a part of this movement. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.